So as technologists, we love our acronyms. We name everything with an acronym, whether it's at home or at work, and that's we like it that way. And there was a new addition in these tech acronym universe, which describes a model or a concept promoted by Gartner, perhaps in 2019, of cybersecurity, which is called SASE. Now, SASE stands for Secure Access Service Edge. And as Gartner explains it, SASE marks the necessary merger of traditional WAN management and security capabilities into a unified whole, one that's built, implemented, and managed using cloud-native architectures. IT decision makers today, they're embracing SASE or Secure Access Service Edge to simplify and centralize the entire process of managing both networking and security while saving money. Many analysts, especially Gartner, Gartner is a bit more bullish, and they view SASE revenue predicting the market to reach about 14 to 15 billion dollars as early as 2025. And Del Oro, another analyst, they actually expect the SASE market to triple by 2026. So there's definitely opportunity in the SASE market. And with me, Brady and Pranav, you guys are the solution experts. So let's jump right in. Brady, I'll ask you my first question. What are some of the trends and challenges you have seen when it comes to businesses in this new world of IT, especially post-pandemic, focusing more on the retail and restaurant markets? Brady?
Sure, Shahid. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm super duper excited to be talking to you all today in this webinar. As Shahid and Ellen introduced, right, I lead the product marketing for verticals for SASE, and I've been doing product marketing for a long time, right? I've been in networking industry with a lot of certifications back in the day, early in my career. So yeah, to answer your question, right, Shahid, on what's going on with retail. So one, for retail, the margins are always razor thin, right? It's a lot about making consumers consume more, and also your retail employees helping the consumers consume more. And technology, especially after pandemic, is turning out to be a big enabler for that. In fact, in one of the surveys VMware did, 88% of retail executives said that they have increased their investments in retail technologies, whether it's using AR, VR to make customers try out their clothes in the store, or using curbside pickup to give a frictionless delivery experience, or using infotainment terminals in the store to increase time spent in store and foot traffic in store, right? There's a lot of technology that's being used, and talking about the challenges for that, right? For the technology, right. If you don't have something foundational to connect this technology, you're not getting you're not delivering the best customer experience. So let me double click a little bit, right, Shahid, there on, I'm using a VR application, right, to try out clothes, and say if I don't see my picture correctly there, I'm, as a customer, I'm not super happy. I'm not sure if I want to try that again till that is ironed out. And as one of the trends have it, customer retention is super challenging if customers get a bad experience. And most of these new applications, they're in the cloud. And with current architecture, and again, I'm sure Pranav has a lot of thoughts on the current architecture. It's super the traffic is being sent from the store to a data center back to the application in the cloud, which does not give a great customer experience, does not give a great user experience for those applications. So to sum it up, right, for this point, on what are the trends and what's going on, there's a lot of new technology that's being adapted with applications that are primarily in the cloud. And with the current networking and security architecture, it's super hard to deliver great user experience to reach those applications. And I haven't even talked about security, which we can cover, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Great points. Pranav, what's your take? What's your take on this?
To your question, I completely agree with what Brady just mentioned. And few things to add to that is the shopping boundaries have significantly expanded. What that means is we are seeing more and more of real customers doing shipping or pickups or in-store pickups, curbside pickups. And also what we're seeing is this trend of where retailers are going to pop-up stores or trying to reach the customers where they are. We have seen customers who go to fairs and they want to support their infrastructure. They want to have the same credit card processing. They want to have the loyalty program access at a fair, which has probably your best bet is a 4G connection, but to have the same level of security, same application access as your store network does. And even the applications are now moving from data center to cloud. They wanted the flexibility where they need a platform which enables them to have a seamless transition from the data center to the cloud. Either it could be a SaaS or it could be moving to an infrastructure as service where they're moving application into their Azure, GCP, or AWS investments. So they needed what we're seeing is this is a trend where we are seeing applications move, we are seeing users move, and at the same time, the attack vector is also evolving. The security threats are becoming much more complex. It's becoming harder and harder for retailers to protect their devices or to make sure their applications are being securely accessed. So these are the things which we see a change when it comes to retail market.
And that's a great point, Pranav, there on employees as well moving out, right? Like with work from everywhere, especially the back end staff, we see a lot of workforce transformation there. So yeah, I agree.
A lot of BYOB devices, people working from home. We see a big trend there. Yes.
Yeah, so I see there are customer expectations, and then there are challenges, right, for businesses to meet their expectations from customers and employees, because employees are also equally important because they are your brand ambassadors, right? And the employees or your staff, they have their own new requirements that have come into play. So there are definitely some, and thank you for pointing out the trends and some of the challenges that business face. Correct me if I'm wrong, but SASE and SD-WAN, they are somehow related, right? And they may be different objectives. There may be common objectives between the two. SASE, to my understanding, focuses on endpoints and end user devices, while SD-WAN connects to branch offices and to the data center. So how does the SD-WAN and SASE combination fit into solving these challenges for businesses? Pranav, you want to go first, or Brady?
Yeah, you can.
The way I would define SASE is a combination of SD-WAN. So SD-WAN is a component, a prime component of SASE, and the SSE component, which is Secured Service Edge, which is your security component of it. Both SD-WAN and SSE coming together forms this ecosystem called SASE. So what we are seeing is when I mentioned SD-WAN, I said it's a primary component. But what SSE does is it includes security, making sure your endpoints are detected, you're identifying who the users are, what devices it is, where it's coming from, what application it's accessing, how it's accessing, and what is the content of it accessing, and making sure that is this person have the authority or is it secure enough to access these applications. Either it could be in data center, in the cloud, or it could be an SaaS application like Office 365, Teams, Dropbox. While that is what the SSE component is, and how the SSE can be delivered in multiple ways. And we can have a complete different discussion on how to deliver SSE. But to connect the SSE, you need a reliable network. Without having the network to be reliable, secured, and able to handle all the impairments which network providers usually happen, like latency, packet loss, jitter, or sites going down, DR, disaster recovery. That is all taken care by SD-WAN, optimizing your traffic to the SSE, where SSE is in path to bolt on all the security features and go out to the applications without adding additional latency or having to hairpin.
Oh, you hit it on the head there, Pranav, saying like SD-WAN being foundational. Shahid, you had a point there to add, or?
No. I'm just listening to you guys.
So yeah, Like just out of curiosity, right? Like audiences, can you like, is there a way for you to tell how many of you know what SASE is already? Like I was surprised during one of my recent like webinars that a lot of people knew what SASE was, because in retail it's like relatively more evolved and like they're already ahead of the curve with respect to SASE. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, like you can put something in the comments that I'll be reading if you know what SASE is. And continuing the conversation, right? To Pranav's point, yes, SASE is right now viewed as combination of SD-WAN and SSE, and we at VMware as well believe SD-WAN to be the foundational to making sure that your SASE architecture is working. And like, just to give a little bit of overview of VMware SD-WAN and VMware SASE architecture, right? But like we just described all the things that are going on, right? Where there's retail employees, the workforce that's distributed everywhere. There's retail stores that are distributed everywhere. Like it's not uncommon for a retail store to have hundreds, perhaps thousands of locations distributed geographically across the country or across the world. And there's tons of devices as well, your Zebra scanners, your inventory management devices, all of those present in the store. So with these devices, people geographically distributed everywhere, and your apps present in the cloud, you can think of VMware SD-WAN and SASE as that middle layer that's sitting right in between these users and applications to determine the best optimal path with lowest latency, to Pranav's point, right? To deliver the most efficient, optimal, and secure experience. So what VMware does here is have something called POP, point of presence, which have everywhere across the world. We cover like majority of the metros with very, very, very low latency. So no matter where an employee is, say they're trying to access, or a customer is, say they are trying to access an application in the cloud. SASE, VMware SASE springs up to action, finds out a POP that's closest, a POP or a slew of POPs that provide the optimal path between this user and the application, authenticates the user to see if he fits all the descriptions, like where Pranav described, right on whether he has the rights to access that application, whether he's the right person, and then provide that optimal access where, like, if you're trying out the dress, you're getting the best experience on how that fits you. And hopefully, as a retailer, make sure that customer who's trying it is buying that dress, like, at least partially because of the technology.
Right. Another thing which I want to quickly add, I don't think which we touched upon, is the visibility part of it, right?
Yep.
Now, the traditional architecture, one of the major drawbacks is you have this complete disaggregated systems. Security is provided with one, your SD-WAN probably something else, and your user identity is provided by someone else. Your SSL decryption, encryption is done by another system. Because of this disaggregation, you don't have a complete picture of how is a network behaving or what's going on in your network. So what SASE does is, it's not just bringing two solutions together, but it's a framework which brings not just brings the solution together, but make them interoperable and give you a unified dashboard or unified information, or go a level above that, where the SD-WAN component can inform the network, the security component, and the security component can take action to either allow or block or remediate the issue which is happening without a human intervention, and bring everything in one umbrella. Now, as a network operator, I don't have to go and fetch information from 5 different systems to just troubleshoot, understand why a particular system is not working or when a user is impacted. What SASE does is, because of this single ecosystem, we are able to get that information much, much quicker, and also go to an extent of automating that, saying that, hey, when this issue occurs, to take these 4 or 5 actions. And that's the whole goal of SASE, where you are spending less time figuring out where the problem is and spending more time to optimize your network.
I think you've set it up perfectly for me to talk a little bit about our monitoring solution, right? Edge network intelligence. So, like, just to talk about that in a nutshell, right? And this is an important conversation, especially because retail at a store level have very low technical support, right? There's at the most one or two technical IT people in a retail store. So what ENI does essentially is it makes it baselines the overall performance for each user and each device and monitors whether the performance is deviating from that baseline, and proactively using AI and machine learning gives alerts to the central IT team on, hey, like say X device, say payment system at this store is not working as expected, and you need to take a look at that rather than like the store IT scrambling to try to figure out a solution. Absolutely, yeah. Like the IT operators making their management easy is one of the critical pieces for retail, and SASE and the management platform helps solve that.
Okay. No, that's definitely very good insights into, how do you solve those problems, whether it's latency, secure experience or optimal access or even visibility. So together, I think we established that SD-WAN and SASE together, they provide the reliable, secure connectivity, ultimately provides an SLA that applications, devices, and users expect, and provides and translates that into CX and return on investment. But tell us, maybe through some use cases or some real world examples, what are the benefits that the customer or a business, a retail or restaurant business would see from SASE or SD-WAN?
I think this is going to take a long time for Pranav and me to cover, right? Because there's a ton of them.
10 minutes.
And I can start, right? So just to touch upon the operations piece that Pranav talked about. It's the pop-up stores piece that Pranav talked about, and an M&A scenario where two retailers are merging or a retail store is starting out a new store are fairly common scenarios. And operations wise, right from day zero of bringing up that site or integrating that site to the central network, all the way to day one and day two, where you're managing the store and you're doing everything. SD-WAN and SASE are super easy to deploy, and sure Pranav has a lot to add there on what Hughes brings to the table and how it makes it super easy, right? But yeah, overall, day zero, day one, day two management is definitely one of the benefits of SASE architecture, that compared to legacy, where it used to take a little bit longer to bring up your sites, it's much faster. Yeah, you want to complete that point, Pranav, before we go to the next one? Yeah.
Sure. So let me add more to that, right? So Brady was absolutely right. What in the summary, what it does is it gives us a lot of flexibility in designing the solution, or it gives retailers options to pivot or change their IT strategy or the users and applications, how they interact with their users as well as applications on the fly. What that means is, let me give you an example, right? We had a customer who had a data center, most of the applications are hosted in the data center, and they have decided hey, instead of having a capex on a data center, we want to go into more of an opex model and move to cloud. And so they were already a customer of Hughes, and we were providing them all the solutions. And it was simply building a new tunnel or having an edge appliance in their preferred cloud partner. And we were able to, all the stores automatically learn the routes through the SD-WAN platform. They're getting secured because of the SASE overlay on top of it, and were able to reach out to their applications in the cloud. And they didn't have to think twice of how to pivot it. They didn't have to spend months and months to re-architecture their entire network to support the cloud journey. And similarly, pop-up stores, right? We had customers who are currently testing out secured access. Now I have users going out, have catering businesses where they go and collect payment information, but they also want to get loyalty points. I don't want to penalize my customers by just taking payments and not earning the loyalty points. So that what secured access provides is any device like an iPad or an iPhone or any kind of device. with a simple application install, we can give the same level of protection, visibility, and access to those remote devices, whatever the underlay connection might be, for their application, so they can go and perform and they don't have to worry about like, oh, how can we take royalty programs? Or if they want to go brand new store opening, you don't have the infrastructure to support. You don't have a broadband link. You don't have all the inventory ready to support it, but you want to open it up so that users can start coming in and start experiencing your new products or services. Even in that case scenario, with minimum support needed, we are able to provide secured information, secured access to their applications, and also secure the endpoints so that they are not vulnerable to security threats.
And like just to top that, right? Like the foundationally in like making it easy to bring up stores is one aspect, but the key focus of retail is trying to use this new technology, right, to make consumers consume more. And all we have been talking about, Pranav and I have been talking about the low latency and providing that access to cloud applications, right? I can't emphasize enough on the benefit of SD-WAN and SASE you get out of that. Like with VMware, SASE, you're not compromising on security because of the integrated nature of security and SD-WAN. Like you're not compromising on performance for security because of the integrated nature. But the foundational benefit is always about delivering that great, secure user experience for these new apps that you're trying to use to deliver great customer experience.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's shift gears a little bit. We talked about the trends in these for new businesses. We talked about the challenges they face, and then we established SASE and SD-WAN is the way to go because it has a lot of benefits. It has a lot of ROI. It has a lot of cost savings. It has tons of benefits that you guys mentioned in about 15 minutes. I think you mentioned a whole bunch of benefits. People are enjoying ROIs, significant ROIs. I've seen reports, I've seen analyst reports, and from our customers for now, we've seen, significant ROIs in customers. Let's just talk about, we see networking groups and security groups kind of work in silos, right? So how do you make that decision to get started with SASE? What I mean is, how is it delivered? What's the best way to deliver the solution?
And I can start, right?
Yeah.
Very quickly, like at a high level to set up for Pranav. So, like fundamentally, right? Like from a VMware standpoint, we look at SASE as two ways to be delivered. One is through a single vendor, where you're taking both the SSE component as well as SD-WAN component from a single vendor. Or you can pick and choose SD-WAN from one vendor and multiple security solutions from different vendors. And they're like based on your individual situations, right? There's benefits as well as disadvantages to both approaches. Same, like you want to deal with single vendor. You want a platform that opens up for you to add more services, which is what VMware offers, right? You can go with a single vendor, which is what VMware can deliver. And this multi-vendor is where you're using best of breed because no single vendor is the best at everything, right? So if you want to pick and choose each vendor, VMware's architecture is open enough that you can, and we have a lot of partnerships with SSE vendors, and that list is continuing to grow. So you can use that too. Like just to sum up my point, right, to leave to Pranav to expand on that is, with VMware, you can do both single vendor as well as multi-vendor, and our open architecture supports that. Over to you, Pranav.
So what I'm seeing is trends in both directions, right? And you're absolutely right. There are two ways to deploy. One is single stack, single vendor. Other one is what we call it as hybrid stack, which could be multiple vendors. An SD-WAN provider could be one vendor, and the SSE component could be another vendor. The way we are seeing, one common trend we are seeing is, Shahid, to your point, right? The siloing of network experts, as well as networking team, as well as the security team. Over the past year, we can see a clear trend of most retailers moving to a cloud-based security, or they have already invested in a SSE provider. And we encourage that, like, hey, if you already have an SSE provider, we don't want you to disrupt because you have invested a lot of money and a lot of time to build the system out, and that system works for you. If it's not working for you, then yes, we can sit down and talk and see what is not working and maybe reevaluate and see what will work best for you. So that security component, we have seen SSE adoption is much, much higher than what we are seeing in other, especially in retail space and other spaces. So I already have SSE. Then I have SD-WAN, but they're not talking to each other. Is the most common thing which we are seeing. So that's where we see right now we have an SSE, and VMware, as Brady mentioned, they were kind of flexible to work with other SSE providers, and VMware SD-WAN can work with these other SSE providers and give you this unified dashboard or interoperability where the traffic is optimized to the SSE provider, and it learns from the SSE provider what profiles to apply to which kind of traffic, like, hey, this is coming from store, or this is coming from a home network, or this is coming from a corporate network, and apply those right policies through the SSE provider. People who have not yet started their journey on SSE provider, that's the second half. They already have an SD-WAN and they're looking for to move into the SASE framework. They have recently renewed their SD-WAN and they don't want to rip and replace, but they want to eventually, like 5 years down the road or 8 years down the road, they want to be fit in that SASE framework. So what we're seeing, the trend is coming from SD-WAN going to the security, is we work with their IT teams to show them the benefits of SSE and see which SSE provider fits best for them. It could be VMware or it could be some other provider with their existing SD-WAN, and then work backwards and see, like, okay, to be in 8 years from now, to adhere to this SASE framework, these are steps you need to take today. This is the first component we need to change in your architecture and start delivering those. So these are the two different deployment models which we are seeing, and where we see this industry going towards one direction all the time. So what we are seeing is having that single vendor has its own advantages, but that means you need to rip and replace your SD-WAN and your SS security or any one of those components. So it's like kind of difficult. Other end of the spectrum is hybrid stack, which has its own benefits. Which major benefit it's being is having the flexibility to pick and choose and put together, because no single SSE vendor out there might answer all your requirements. So these are the two different models. Both have its own pros and cons, and it's up to the customer to put down all their requirements and see which model suits them best.
And one simple framework, right, that I look at is on, hey, if you have a big team that wants to manage and is looking at, you have a strong enough team to manage each of those individual components, best of breed is something that could work better because you have the ability to deal with multiple dashboards. And you have a strong enough team that you can customize the solution the way you want. But if you want a single dashboard and an easy way to get uploaded, usually for one single vendor SASE could be the best route. To Pranav's point, it's completely up to them, right? Yeah. Go ahead, Shahid.
Yeah. No, I mean, just to add to that, you've probably worked with several customers, several use cases in several verticals. Share some of the best practices out there in the industry, just for somebody to adopt and deploy a SASE.
Sure. I can go first. So first thing is, it's really important to audit and evaluate your current infrastructure. You need to really understand where your applications are, what is the roadmap for your applications, where your users are, and anticipate where your users might be from now, like 5 years from now. Are they going to be completely digital, or are we going to expand our footprint? That is the most critical point. So once you have an understanding of what your infrastructure looks like today and where your applications and your users are going to be in a couple of years from now, then you can that makes it clear, hey, you can then prioritize, okay, these are my requirements and these are my priorities. The second one is segment and prioritize. As we said, the major components is SD-WAN and security, and I want to throw in another one, which is app visibility. So how critical is each component? and how much of visibility you want, or how much of SD-WAN you really need, or depending on your infrastructure, or how much of security is needed. Do you need edge-based security or cloud-based security or in-path security? There are multiple ways you can deliver security. Try to understand the different components and try to do your own research to see which one suits best for you. The third one is then evaluate. There are a lot of SD-WAN providers, and each one have their own pros and cons. Evaluate what the SD-WAN SASE provider is providing you from a particular vendor, and try to compare with your requirements, which you have made in the first step. See which maps best. And if some of the components are unmatching, I would highly encourage them to look at the roadmaps, because SASE, as Shahid, you mentioned, it's fairly new. It's been like not more than 2 years or 2.5 years at this point since it has been termed, and where organizations have been starting to build that ecosystem.
Yeah.
So it's still fairly new. So it's really important to look at their roadmaps, talk to the vendors, or talk to managed service providers like us to help them understand, like, hey, this is your journey. So you are going to start with from point A, and by the time you reach point C, these components should be made available to you, and we can integrate that and keep moving forward. Another important thing is testing. So unless you unless the rubber meets the road, you don't understand what are the difficult points,
Right.
and what works or what doesn't work. And at Hughes, we have this pilot program where we encourage our customers to do proof of concepts. We come in and deploy. We take your most trouble sites. We take your requirements, help you with the design process, deploy, and make you give you the driver's seat to understand what SASE can do to your network and give you that visibility. So this is how I would frame when you wanted to deploy a SASE. These are the few things you always need to keep in mind before you start working towards your end goals.
Awesome. I think Pranav covered pretty much most of the things there. One thing I want to add is on, like, when you're looking at choosing like overall SASE vendor, right? You also want to look at it from a platform perspective, right? On whether you can add like that platform can add new services easily, and those services that are being added meet your future requirements. Like, and for that, one of the things, like, it's a shameless plug on our Edge portfolio, right? Which is something that retailers we are at least seeing a huge early customer interest on, is on, like, that's going to be something that will be a natural extension from SASE, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think maybe Gartner coined the term with edge in the end, thinking about the edge and talking about. So, like, the latency sensitiveness of the applications, there's new class of applications that are evolving, what we tend to call them as edge native applications, which for retailers, like, it could be something like inventory management using image processing, or it could be like theft detection using image processing, where you need super ultra low latency and also ability to run these edge native applications within the store. And SD-WAN, like VMware SASE as a platform, is ready to turn on the edge and provide those new capabilities for the retailer. So yeah, like, combining all the points that Pranav said, and also about those future use cases, which for which, whether, like, the great point around whether they have it in their roadmap, is something that you all want to look at.
Thank you very much. That's definitely good insights, good sharing of best practices. I appreciate that. Folks, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A button on top of your screen. Please enter your questions, because I'm almost towards my last question here with the panelists. But, thank you. So I think bottom line is it's necessary now, especially in these times, to extend our security posture beyond the traditional security postures we have. And we have to adopt new technologies, because we need to meet customer expectations, and we need to provide that customer and employee experience for business growth. So as retailers or restaurants or business owners are planning their deployment, they also want to plan their future. What do you guys see new in the world of SASE over the next 5 or 10 years?
So,
Brady? Go ahead.
Sure.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. So one thing which we are seeing is going to my previous point, right? Now we have security and the network working together and interoperability. What we're really seeing is AI ops, artificial intelligence and machine learning playing a big role here to remediate problems. We are seeing a trend where self-healing, which was just limited to but to the individual or individual team or the organization to build something for their own organization. Now we are seeing it's a generic approach across all vendors. We are seeing systems where it can detect that, hey, my tunnel is not performing optimally. Let me switch it to a new tunnel. Or security policies being applied based on the intent, based on where the applications are going, how they're going, and seeing the trends. This application, this IoT device has never spoken with the printer. Why is it talking now? To go and proactively block that access. Learning from how the traffic patterns are changing and learning how the underlays are changing. Another sweet component of SD-WAN is it, irrespective of underlay, it can provide you the service. As long as it supports TCP IP, you can use MPLS, 5G, 4G, broadband, fiber, coax, it doesn't matter. It can provide that. While your underlay is changing, the application behavior also changes because now either you're getting more bandwidth or less bandwidth. The self-healing component kind of understands how the underlay is changing and optimize that application traffic, or let's say there's very little bandwidth available because of poor 4G signal and your primary goes down. In that cases, the AI ops, what we are seeing a trend is it kind of prioritizes your most critical applications and send over the link while deprioritizing your applications which do not need to access that link at that point. So we're seeing a trend there where security and networking are working together, and AI ops is enabling customers to actually focus on the main key problem statements. And also another thing which we're looking through AI ops is showing where the critical loopholes or critical failure points in your network are, predicting them and seeing a pattern and saying like, hey, these three things happened, these two things are going to happen in your network, and you want to go and remediate it, either through human intervention or automate it and go and figure it out. So that's a big trend we are seeing, or the new component we are seeing with SASE.
Awesome. And like just to top that off, right? Like to reiterate the point, one of the things we are seeing is more around edge. So edge beginning to play a critical role in retail to enable those new use cases, be it like frictionless shopping, shopping with no intervention from someone in store, right? Contactless shopping. That's something where edge will play a huge role. And also like inventory management, theft detection to improve the margins for retailers. All these are application use cases where edge is something that we're seeing as a trend for retailers going forward.
Okay. No, that's definitely good insights into the future. And as like I said before, consumer habits are changing, their expectations are changing. Businesses need to catch up. They not only catch up, I think they need to be ahead of the curve, right? To make sure that they meet or at least meet or go above and beyond the expectations of customers and employees as well, because employees have expectations these days and they are important. I mean, they need communications on time. They need to have, backroom communications or with the backroom TV or something. And Hughes actually offers those managed services, not just for SASE networking, but also digital media services. We have customer experience and employee engagement tools, and we have other webinars and other information on that. So just as any substantial security implementation, deploying SASE is like a journey, right? And it varies from organization to organization, business to business, depending on their needs and depending on their requirements. And it could be a very complex undertaking, especially for a small or a mid-sized business. Naturally, it'll be valuable to turn to an experienced service provider, a managed service provider such as Hughes. And Hughes, Pranav, I would like you to talk further about it. We have expertise in both networking, cybersecurity, digital signage, and that actually reduces your risk and it reduces your time to market and ensures success. And then we work with best of breed providers such as VMware. So for now, can you end at that and just provide us some insights on our managed services?
Sure, absolutely. So as Shahid, you mentioned, right, one critical component or advantage by using a managed service provider like Hughes is we have been there and done that. We have done SD-WAN. We have been doing SD-WAN for over 8-9 years. Even before SD-WAN term was coined, we have been the forefront of SASE, working with our partners and working with VMware and other vendors to put the solutions together. We have been adhered to the SASE framework way before Gartner even coined term SASE. We have been making sure that our customers get the continuous protection and get that identity-based security policies applied even before Gartner coined that, hey, this is a framework which you have to follow. So we have that expertise. We have been doing it for years and years. We have 50 years of experience in this industry, and we have been delivering that. And another critical thing which I want to point out, especially in retail spaces, networking and security is one major component, but you have other stuff. You have, as you mentioned, you have digital media, you have VoIP systems, security cameras. You have now with ordering systems and going on third-party ordering systems, you have to interact with these different systems. So we have expertise. We have a huge presence in retail. We have worked with a lot of the other vendors, let it be Uber Eats or Ola application for order taking. We know how to implement it. We know what challenges you are going to face. We can anticipate what's not working, what will not work for you, and design the network, design the security, and also bolt on this additional components and provide this managed service overlay on top of it, which brings everything in one single vendor, one single interface. What that does is, if anything goes wrong in your store, you have one single contact to reach out to, and since we have visibility into everything, we can quickly go and fix that problem. Or since we have expertise in this industry because we are dealing with similar retailers, we can come back and re-architect your network to better fit for what you are trying to do. Another thing which I want to bring up is AI ops. SASE enables AI ops to grow quite rapidly, but SASE is mostly security and your SD-WAN component. But Hughes AI ops goes beyond that. We do AI ops on top of your VoIP. We do AI ops for your application traffic. We do detection of what kind of IoT devices are being used in your network. We can also go and seamlessly tell you like, hey, your refrigerator sensor is faulty or it's broken, and maybe it's still reporting a wrong information. We can look at traffic patterns on how it's reporting, and we can let you know. And for example, if the refrigerator sensor assumes it's still working and sending out information, but we see that traffic patterns are changed, that means it's a faulty sensor. So especially in retail, in fast food retail, it's critical to know what temperature the refrigerator is. What if the store manager comes back next day and the temperature is still reporting below 30 degrees, but it's actually 65 inside? All your food is spoiled. Thousands of dollars of food has to be thrown out. And then you have to shut down the store because you don't have inventory to serve. So you're looking at revenue loss. You're looking at loss in food, and again, the reputation goes down, customer experience goes down, because there's someone else right across the street who is serving food, and your customers are just going there, and to bring back those customers is a big challenge. So as a managed service provider, that's how we bring everything together for a retail customer.
Thank you very much. I'm getting a signal that it's time to wrap up, and we do have a few questions. I do want to get at least two of the questions. Brady, let me ask you one of the questions that came in. And I believe we touched on this, but maybe you can elaborate a little further. What type of ROI is typically seen with an SASE deployment?
I think that's one of the foundational questions you want to ask when you're looking at, right? Mm-hmm. They're going towards a SASE solution. And as we have it, VMware has a study from TEI, Forrester, and the numbers that came from that are like using a VMware SASE solution. Our customers are seeing all their money back in 6 months and getting over 2x their ROI within the first 3 years of deployment. So the returns are huge, and adding to the top of it, the customer experience benefits and security benefits you get, it's a no-brainer, really.
Okay, thank you. Pranav, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. So one major ROI is actually operations, right? The amount of time you save in operations, amount of time you reduce with alert fatigue and number of dashboards you have to look in and to resolve that problem. That is gone. I think that's a main ROI, which many at the beginning we tend to overlook. But bringing down the operational cost will save a lot of money in the longer run.
Okay. No, thank you for your insights. How would somebody get started, Brady? If somebody wants to, it's sold today, they want to use SASE, they want to deploy SASE. How would they get started? Where do they
I'm going to
start?
call the people on this webinar, right? That could be a good way to
Call
start it.
Brady, call Pranav, and you'll get your answers. Hey, thank you very much for a great session. We are actually out of time. I hope I don't get dropped off during my closing remarks, but thank you very much. Thank you, Pranav. Thank you, Brady, for your
Thank you for
insight
having
and
me.
being part of this panel. Folks, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.